Clearing close in the forest you'll find a fabulous banquet, a fairy ball. If you close your eyes and you open your mind, the veil disappears and you see it all.
Hi my angels, it's Hailey Reese, and for today's video we are going to be diving into yet another true story behind a horror film, and this one is probably, well, in my opinion, is the most interesting and crazy out of any that I have covered thus far. I've also never heard anybody talk about the true story behind this. I only just found it out when I started to research into it, so I'm really excited to share it with you guys. But before we get into today's video, I would just very quickly like to thank Shudder for sponsoring today's video. I've collaborated with Shudder so many times in the past, primarily because I really believe in what they do. I absolutely love them, and I love to share them with you guys because I truly believe that it's something that you guys will enjoy hearing about and using. So Shudder is essentially a one-stop shop for anything horror, thriller, suspense, and all that jazz. And on Shudder, you actually get content that you are unable to find anywhere else. Shudder actually has 30 horror films that you are absolutely unable to find anywhere else. And for somebody like me who really and truly appreciates a good horror film or a good psychological thriller, sometimes it's honestly hard to find new movies and new shows that you haven't already seen. But with Shudder, I've never run out of any horror films or suspenseful things or scary things, and it is absolutely amazing. Now, when anybody signs up for Shudder, they actually get a free 7-day trial, but Shudder has provided me with a coupon code for you guys that will give you an extended free 30-day trial. So you'll have 30 days to test out Shudder and see if it's something that you enjoy. I'm pretty sure you will. But either way, you'll have free 30 days to test it out, really get to know it, and see if it's something that you want to continue to use. So there's so many exciting things going on Shudder. They have so many titles that I guarantee you have yet to see but are going to be absolutely amazing. And I just love them so much. So like I said, if you are interested in testing out Shudder, I will have a link at the very top of my description. You can go ahead and use my coupon code to get a free extended 30-day trial and really just take advantage of this opportunity to watch some of the best streaming movies available. So thank you, Shudder, so much for sponsoring, and I really hope that you guys check it out, check them out, and watch some creepy stuff. But without further ado, let's get into this video because like I said, the movie Anguish has some pretty creepy stuff going on behind it. The true story is absolutely mind-blowing, and I don't want to waste one more minute not getting into it. Now, very briefly, I will mention that Anguish is available to stream on Shudder, and that's kind of what inclined me to do some research into it. I personally watched the movie Anguish years ago, probably like 2 years ago, I would assume, and I thought that it was such a great movie, but at the same time I always wondered if there had been some sort of a true story behind it. Now, everybody kind of knew that Anguish was based on a true story, but one thing is I hadn't heard a lot of people talk about what that true story is. So as I was browsing through Shudder for some things to watch, I went ahead, I saw that Anguish was there, and I thought, let me take a look and see what exactly the true story behind the film is. And that's where it gets crazy interesting. So Anguish is a 2015 horror film based on a girl by the name of Tess, who has a gift where she's able to channel spirits and allow them to actually possess her so that they can say goodbye to their loved ones and move on. Now, in the film, a deceased girl by the name of Lucy has taken possession of Tess, and Lucy's mother actually believes that if Tess allows Lucy to be within her and to communicate with her mother, that she could encourage Lucy to move on. But the film Anguish is actually based on a girl who was able to do exactly that, and it's so incredible. So a girl by the name of Mary Roff Vennum was born in 1864, and her family actually moved to Watseka in 1873. Now, for the sake of no confusion later in the story, and it will make sense to you guys in a moment, I'm not going to refer to Mary Roff Vennum as Mary. I'm going to refer to her as Lorenzi, just because there's another Mary that comes into the story, and if I have two Marys, I'm going to confuse you guys. Believe me, it was confusing even reading up on the research. So in July of 1877, Lorenzi was actually 13 years old. Now, around this time, she started to behave very strangely. She would get dizzy, disoriented, disconnected, but in this particular month of July, she went ahead and collapsed into a very deep sleep. Now, that was just the beginning of all of these strange happenings revolving around sleep for Lorenzi. She would fall asleep very, very abruptly and begin to behave very strangely as she was asleep. She started to speak in her sleep of angels and demons and deceased loved ones, and actually started to talk on behalf of certain deceased relatives that had passed on. But when Lorenzi would wake up, she would have no recollection of the things that she had talked about while she was asleep. Now, as times went on, the dreams actually got a lot darker, and while she was asleep, she would begin to sleepwalk, running around the house, running away from particular spirits and things that were chasing her while she was asleep. She would channel these things and begin to act out while she was asleep. And like I said, when she would wake up, she would have no recollection of having done so. It got to a point where she was actually experiencing these sleeping spells for 8 hours a day. So not during the night, which would be a normal night's sleep. She was experiencing these spells for 8 hours during the day, where she would go into this sleep, this very, very deep sleep, and channel certain things and start to behave very, very scary in the opinions of her family. Now, when her parents started to really get alarmed was when she began speaking in the voices of deceased loved ones. So if her parents had known somebody who had passed on, she would begin to speak with their voice. Like, could you imagine seeing somebody sleeping in a completely different voice emerging from their mouths while they're there sleeping? It would be very, very alarming, and that's exactly what it was to her family. Now, her family immediately began searching for some sort of explanation or some sort of answers as to what was going on with their 13-year-old daughter. And around this time, word really spread like wildfire. It spread very, very quickly. And spiritualists from all across the area began recognizing mediumistic abilities within her. They started to realize that this was perhaps more than just a girl who was dreaming and speaking on behalf of other people and speaking in different voices. This was a girl who had some sort of very, very strong gift. Now, as this progressed, she began speaking in foreign languages, you guys. Languages that this girl had not learned prior to these incidences. If a spirit would channel within her that was from France per se, she would begin speaking French, talking on behalf of them. If they were from Portugal, she would begin speaking Portuguese. Those are just examples, but truly she would channel these spirits that spoke different languages and begin speaking properly and perfectly in a different language on behalf of these individuals. And that's when her parents really, really began to realize something was not right. Now, her parents immediately started contacting medical professionals because they had absolutely no idea what more to do, and none of them could find anything physically wrong with her, though her health had began deteriorating. Her health was on a downward spiral, but yet they couldn't find any probable cause for this. And that's when they went ahead and diagnosed her with a mental illness. And that was when they actually recommended that she be sent to a state insane asylum, because they thought that that would be best for her, as they deemed her very mentally ill and they wanted her to get the best treatment and therapy that she would be able to. Now, in 1877, her parents began preparing to send their daughter to this insane asylum because they felt as though they had no other options. However, in January of 1878, a local spiritualist by the name of Mary Roff went ahead and intervened. He went ahead and told her parents that putting her into confinement would only worsen her symptoms and be a lot worse for her, and that he knew this because of experience, because his daughter had actually had a gift very, very similar to their daughters, and she had wound up in an asylum as well and wound up actually committing suicide because it was all just too much for her to take. So he didn't want to see the same fate for their daughter, and so he really strongly recommended that they didn't put her into an asylum and really wanted to help hands-on to figure out what they could do for her. So he went into detail, basically sharing that his daughter by the name of Mary Roff, who was born in 1846, began experiencing very, very similar symptoms to that of their daughter. As she grew older, it got a lot worse, and she began hearing voices day in and day out, and that was when they went ahead and also diagnosed her with a mental illness and put her into an asylum. Now, while she was within this asylum and while she was within this confinement, she began foreseeing things in the future that came true with such accuracy. It really terrified the people around her, which caused them to put her into even more confinement. And at the age of just 19, she had actually committed suicide because it was all just way too much for her, and she could no longer handle it. Mary had actually passed away on July 5th in 1865, and her parents actually went ahead and became spiritualists in hope of continuing to communicate with their daughter. So as soon as Lurancy came to his attention, it was so strikingly similar to the incidences of his daughter that he felt as though it was kind of his parental duty to step in and stop them from sending their daughter to the asylum, as he feared that their daughter would meet a very similar fate that his had. So he very quickly became convinced that Lurancy was a girl who had the ability to become possessed by the spirits of the dead that want to communicate here on Earth. With everybody in the room, her parents went ahead and decided that they would allow their daughter to channel something. She had channeled 2 spirits, but then all of a sudden, you guys, her arms flailed in the air, she collapsed, and out came the spirit of Mary Roff. Mary went ahead and told everybody in the room that Lorenzi was extremely ill, and that in order for her to survive, she required some time in heaven with the angels, and that there they could cure her. And while the time passed, where Mary Lorenzi would be up in heaven with the angels getting healed, her soul would be being mended, she thought that she could stay within Lorenzi's body and be with her family once again. Now, to the Roff family's overload of joy, the trance continued, which had actually never happened before. Prior, Mary Lorenzi, who was channeling these spirits, would channel the spirits and then the spirits would leave. It never continued, they never remained within her. But to the joy and surprise of the Roff family, this spirit of Mary stayed within Mary Lorenzi, and she became Mary Lorenzi, but Mary, if that makes sense to you guys. Now, prior to this entire ordeal, these 2 families had very, very, very little interaction between them. They didn't know, deepest, darkest secrets. They didn't know the details of each other's lives. They just knew each other as acquaintances. And Mary went ahead and reiterated back to the Roff family every single memory she had. Things that Mary Lorenzi could have had no idea about if it wasn't truly the spirit of Mary within her. Now here's where it gets really wild, you guys. Mary went ahead and asked if she could spend 3 months with the Roff family while the spirit of Lorenzi was up in heaven being healed. And to what you would think is a surprise, they all agreed. And from February 10th to May 21st of 1878, she went and lived with the Roff family. Now, the Vennum's family would actually go and occasionally visit their daughter, although the daughter had no memory or recollection of them, as she was the spirit of the other Mary within their daughter. But they were so gracious for the experience because they could see very, very obviously the health condition of their daughter improving and improving and improving. And it was just so astonishing to them that she had been so ill prior, but that this really appeared to be healing her. So really put into perspective, you guys, of how much Mary knew of her life. I guess as they were driving to their home, Mary went ahead and asked them why they hadn't stopped by the old house. And that house had actually been sold right after she had died. So she had recollection of a home that Mary Valenci would have had no idea about. She even recognized the neighbors and spoke about her previous life and memories as though she had never died, as though this was really her. So there were certain things, as crazy as this all sounds, that really proved that this spirit of the other Mary was within this body. She even had recollection of when her parents had tried to contact her in the afterlife, and even had memories of when they had buried her. And she even went ahead and made a comment pointing to the spot on her arm where she had self-harmed and unfortunately ended her life. She pointed that part out, which nobody could have known, and she said, "It wasn't this arm, that arm is underground." Then May came around, and Mary went ahead and had a conversation with her mother in particular about how she would have to leave soon, that her time was running out here. She spent time with each and every family member. She held them, she cried, she said all of the things that she wished she would have said when she was alive. And that is when Mary Valenci returned. On May 21st, Mary Valenci returned into her body. All of her health conditions miraculously healed. She went ahead and got married. Everything had kind of stopped that she was dealing with before, and she lived a completely healthy and normal life. However, in the years that followed, Mary Lorenzi would occasionally go ahead and visit the Roff family and allow seances to bring Mary back into her so she could communicate with her family. I just think that is so mind-blowing. And that's essentially what Anguish was based off of, is this particular experience of these two girls who, I don't even know how to explain what happened, but it's just so incredibly fascinating and mind-blowing and really reassuring. Like, this girl knew of things that she could only know if it was that soul within her body. I don't know, you guys, I just found the true story behind this film so incredibly fascinating and interesting and thought-provoking, and I just couldn't wait to share it with you guys because it fascinated me that much. I personally had never heard about this story prior to doing my research into it, and I don't know how I've never heard of it because it's so incredibly interesting, fascinating, frightening, all of the above, that I'm surprised that people haven't talked about it more. But I don't know, let me know in the comments below if you guys have heard of this before, because I certainly never had. Well, you guys, that is it for today's video. I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. I would absolutely love it if you would drop some comments down below and let me know what you think of this story, if you've heard of it, what you think exactly took place, and just basically anything and everything, and just all of your thoughts. I just love reading what you guys think of everything, and I love replying, so make sure to drop a comment down below with whatever you want to say. Thank you once again to Shutter for sponsoring today's video. Like I mentioned a million times, I have a link at the very top of my description. You can go ahead, click that link, use my coupon code, and get a free 30-day extended trial for Shutter. It's awesome, you won't regret it, and that is it. If you guys are new to my channel, or you are just not yet subscribed but you do enjoy my videos, I would absolutely love it if you would go ahead and click that subscribe button. I post a ton of videos, so I don't want you to miss when I upload, and please give this video a big thumbs up, because it makes my heart really happy when you guys do that and I see that you enjoy my content, and it just makes me so happy. So please do that. Remember, my loves, do all things with kindness, and until next time, I love you.